Give me a second. Give me a second here.
All right, welcome to the Elash Apartment Connection, where we bring people together and share the tips, tools, and insights that will help you become a successful apartment investor and take back your time so you can do what you want and reconnect with the special people in your life. We know your time is valuable, and we really appreciate you being here tonight. The Elash mission is to enhance lives, and one of the ways we do that is by offering completely passive investments that provide income and grow your wealth, which allows busy people like you to start freeing your time. Now, investing in apartments can be scary if you don't know what you're doing, so stick around as we jump into the details. Tonight, we're talking about due diligence. Joining us this evening is Leslie Awasom. Leslie is the Director of Operations and co-founder of Excite Capital, managing the company operations, market and data analysis, cash flow, and budget analysis. Excite currently owns and manages $168 million worth of multifamily real estate. Leslie, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Matt. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing really great, enjoying
All
the hot
right.
weather.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that warm intro. Everyone, welcome, and thank you guys for having me. Like Matt said, my name is Leslie Awasom. I'm one of the founders of Excite Capital Investments, and I'm also the director of operations. And Excite Capital was founded 5 years ago by three busy professionals who saw the need to be able to provide access to this asset class to members of our professional community, realizing that a lot of busy professionals did not know that they could create passive income from investing in multifamily assets. We decided to create a platform where we'll go out and educate members of our community about the benefits of investing in multifamily assets. And since then, we've been lucky because a lot of members of our community got the message and came along the journey with us. And we've acquired $168 million of assets under management. The last 5+ years have been a significant journey of growth for us and our community. Over that period of time, we've educated over 1,700 people and still currently manage 838 doors and in the process of acquiring another 268 doors in Atlanta. So it has been a great journey of growth, and I'm just blessed and grateful for any opportunity that I get to share my experience or the little knowledge that I've gained on this journey with others. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about due diligence, which is a very, very important topic when it comes to multifamily investing, right? So when it comes to multifamily investing, a lot of times when we talk about due diligence, we typically referring to the general partnership side, to the GP side, the operator side, like what we look for when we go to buy an asset, like the kind of things that we look for to make sure that this is a great opportunity once we have that property on the contract. But due diligence is also important for the LP side. Like if you're a passive investor and you're gonna put forward 50, $100,000 of your hard-earned income to invest in an asset, it is also important that you do your own due diligence as well. So when it comes to the limited partners, there are three main factors that you want to focus due diligence on. That is, you want to do your due diligence on the sponsor, making sure that this is somebody that has a good reputation, good track record, ask for some references, talk to other people that have worked with this sponsor in one way or the other so that you know that you're investing with the right person or the right group. You want to do your due diligence on the market because the saying that the three most important factors of real estate is location, location, location still holds true. So you want to make sure that you're investing in a market that is growing. So do your own due diligence on the market and understand too that real estate is hyper local. So just because Atlanta is a great market does not mean that there's every neighborhood in Atlanta is good. So do your own due diligence. There are a lot of information that you could find using free data sources like Google, data.io, just to do some location analysis to make sure that you're investing in a good location. And then finally, you want to do a good due diligence on the deal. Make sure it's a solid asset, doesn't have like any kind of issues. And I'm not going to go into too much detail and depth about the limited partnership side, the due diligence from a limited partner perspective today. I'm going to focus more on the general partnership side, right? And these are some of the things. So in the process of acquiring a multifamily property, right? It typically starts, your due diligence really starts from the acquisition phase, right? For us at Excite Capital, we start our due diligence very early on. That is by doing our underwriting, right? We do something called a sniff test, and that sniff test starts with the location, the property type, the property vintage, and then we look at the business plan, right? So that is part of that due diligence process. We want to understand if this property is located, first of all, in a market that we're interested in. And within that market, is it in a locality? Is it in a neighborhood that is growing? We want to look and see, based on the financials that the property is presenting, is this property performing very well? Does it have good qualified tenants on there? So that due diligence period starts there, that underwriting process, because as a buyer, the seller is supposed to give you the financial documents, like how that property has been performing for you to be able to do your evaluation, so you could come up with a great with a good enough value or price that you could offer to that seller. So that due diligence starts from that acquisition process. But once you've done that initial phase of doing your own due diligence, doing an underwriting, and you find a price that makes sense for you to acquire this property and you go on the contract, then there's typically like a 30-day due diligence period where you have access to the property, you have access to the property financials, and you could go in and do a lot of more due diligence. You could actually go in and do physical inspection of the property. And those are some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today, right? And I'm just going to be walking you through our actual due diligence checklist, right? These are some of the things that we look at for every due diligence that we go into. Like when we have a property under contract, we go out there with our property management team, our whole asset management team, and we come in with all of our contractors, all of our third-party contractors that we work with. We go in and we inspect every single aspect of that property, from the physical structure to like landscaping to plumbing to electricals. We want to make sure that is our chance to make sure that whatever the seller is representing to us is actually accurate. Because after that 30-day period, after you have it under contract, it's yours, right? Anything you find, you have to deal with it. So that's our opportunity to going through all the crawl spaces and to make sure that we're looking at everything, make sure that this is still a great opportunity to take on the contract. And here some of the things that we look at. Obviously, you want to know what year the property is built, right? You want to look at every single lease. Like when we go to the due diligence, we have a team that spends time in the leasing office and we look through every single lease on that property and make sure that the numbers represented are the same numbers that are on the rent roll. The terms represented are in line with what the seller says. So we look at every single lease to make sure that that information is accurate. We compare the security deposit on the lease to what's in the bank account to make sure that everything aligns. We want to know what the pet policy is on that property, because and if there are any policies that you cannot change as a new owner, you want to be aware of that. You want to know what those policies are on the current lease, right? Because you cannot make changes, you cannot make significant changes on the existing lease. So you want to know what's on there so that as you going into your management phase, you could make adjustments as necessary, right? We want to look at operating statements for at least the last 2 years, because looking at a 12-month period is all good and fine, but having a 2-3 year period tells you a better story of how the property has been performing and what has been happening on the property. You want to look at audited financials as well. So our property management team spends a lot of time and they have a sequence where they go through and look at all these things and make sure that everything aligns, right? So then the current owner has to present a list of all like the copies of any office equipment or any like even cleaning supplies. I remember one property that we acquired, and the property, and we did the due diligence and they gave us a list of all the supplies and everything. And the maintenance person that was on the property decided to take all the maintenance stuff and just travel out with it and took it to Florida with him. So when we took over the property, we had to go back and look at this list and to make sure that everything matches. And when we found out the things that didn't align, we went back to the owner and that maintenance person had to bring all those things back. So these are the kind of little things that you pay attention to. In this case, it was just like cleaning supplies, but it could be something more significant that you miss out on. Then you want to look at the payroll cost as well. Make sure that that is also in line with your with your assumptions, right? So So this is again, this is like your opportunity for you to look at everything and make sure that it matches with the information that has been provided in the financials. So you look at the utility bills for the last 2 years. Are there any existing contracts that you locked into? For example, one good one is like cable contracts, right? A lot as a property owner, as a multifamily owner, you have the opportunity to sign like long-term contracts with the cable companies, and they provide you some money, like they can give you a bonus for doing that. You want to see if that's in existence, and if as a new owner you're entitled to any of those bonuses, and if the contract is something that you could void when you take over, because that's an opportunity for you to create extra income. You want to look at the real estate taxes for the last few years. Make sure that it's in line with what your projections are. And part of the due diligence that you do as well is to get like a tax consultant to give you actual tax numbers for when you take over the property, what those numbers are going to look like, right? Look at the replacement reserve, office inventory, clubhouse inventory, everything. Remember, you're acquiring this whole property, right? So once the keys are handed over to you, it is your responsibility. So you want to know what you're walking into, right? And then from the financing side, if you're getting a new loan, your lender is going to want to do some inspections on the property as well. Your lender is going to be doing some due diligence on the property as well. And you as the owner, you want to know what the loan terms are. Once the loan is taken over, or let's say if you're assuming a loan, what are the terms? Are there any prepayment penalty? All of that information, you want to have that in check. And your lender is going to do like the environmental studies. This is typically ordered by the lender. They do environmental studies. A lot of times when they do like a phase one study, most properties will not require another phase two, second phase two study, but sometimes the lenders would order a phase two study as well. And the lenders too might request an appraisal, which is done. A soil test is usually done just to make sure that there's not like pollution, no petroleum pollution on the property. And then you have like a pest inspection report as well. For some properties that are built older, you might have like a lead inspection or some kind of lead clearance that's on that property as well. So that this is all part of the due diligence process as well. You want to look at the zoning for the property. Um, some of this part of the legal due diligence is done by a contract attorney. They look at all the copies of the utility letters, the utility contracts, the zoning, and make sure that everything is in line. Make sure that you're not walking into a situation where you're going to be dealing with a lot of issues after you take over the property as well. And you look at the site plan, you look at all warranties, look at every single aspect of the building. The due diligence period is your time to go in there and make sure that the asset that you're acquiring is a great asset, right? So this is some of the list of items that we look at. Does the property have a landscaping contract, right? What does it look like? How much do they pay for it? Any kind of cleaning services, all the contract services, you want to see what those terms are. Can you get out of them? Or you are stuck with those contract services. Sometimes you might inherit a property with a contract that is not favorable at all, and you might be stuck with it. So you want to know this in advance so that you could make any adjustments in your underwriting and your projections. Pool service, answering service, copier service, all of this stuff is part of your administrative due diligence that you're doing. Then you want to look at, we already talked about the rental agreements, any kind of turnkey agreements, any kind of carpet agreements from all the contractors. Ideally, for most properties, when we take over, we can cancel out all the contracts that the previous owner had and bring in our own contractors. That's what we typically like, and that's what we typically do, right? So you've done all this, the legal stuff, the paper stuff, because you're doing all of this simultaneously, right? So when we go, the way we do our due diligence at Excite Capital is we in most of our contracts, we usually walk in like a 7-day early access before we actually go under contract, before we actually go under PSA. During that early access is when we actually go in and do a lot of this administrative and physical due diligence. So we have a team in the office reviewing all those contracts, going through all the administrative paperwork. Our lawyers are going through all the contracts that are sent to them as well, reviewing everything, make sure everything checks out. Then we have a team on site on the property, right? Doing everything that you see listed over here. We have people looking at we have our landscaping contractors looking for any overgrown bushes, looking at the trees to see what areas need to be trimmed, and we generating a budget for the cost for all of these repairs that need to be done, right? We're looking at the exterior walls, right? What is the existing material? Is it wood, vinyl, hardy plank? Is there any replacement that needs to be done on the exterior wall? What condition is that wall? And you want to look at all of that, right? We're looking at paint. Do you need to repaint the property? And all of these things help you come up with a better budget, right? So that when you take over this business, you know how to manage it to profit. So you look at each building. You look at picture of the picture of each elevation going around the building. You want to look at that, see if there are like any risk areas, right? You look at the windows. Windows is a big one. This is one big one that could be like a huge expense when you take over a property, because you want to see if there are any issues with the windows, if you need to replace the windows. If you need to replace the windows, you want to factor that into your budget as well. The roofs is another big one. We usually have people on top of the roofs. Now with technology, it's actually done by drones. A lot of the roof or contractors come in and do like drone shots of the roofs to identify any roofs that need to be replaced, and that is updated in the business plan. And then we go into unit interior inspections. I've heard people say varying things about interior inspection. Some people go into 70% of the units, but for our due diligence, we go into every single unit. We go with team inspects every single unit, and it's a very very efficient process that we've developed, and we able to go like we completed our due diligence on the 268 unit building, and we're able to walk all the units in 2 days. And there's always a surprise when you do this due diligence. I remember when we were doing the due diligence of this property, I was standing outside watching the team going in through some of the rooms, and I saw the team walked into one apartment and they ran back out, like coughing. One of the maintenance, he was coughing and getting all red and sweating, right? He was like, "Oh my God, it's bad in there. It's bad. Like there's a dead body in there." I'm like, "Oh wow, this is crazy." So of course, I want to go see how bad it is over there so that we could factor that into our budget or to understand what's going on. Or if it's a property that we need to run away from. And it was really bad. The unit looked really bad, but the person was not dead. He was just very sick, very very down. Is not having a good is not in a good place in life. So but we were able to talk to the property managers, and they provided him with some health support and clean up the units. But again, it's always a great thing because you never know what you're going to see when you go on these due diligence tours. Seen worst on some of the other properties, but thankfully, it's usually one off unit that you see that. And again, it's just a unit that needs to be renovated, by the way. So you just factor that in as part of your budget. HVAC, you want to look at the age of the HVAC units. Because you need to budget that appropriately, because after a certain age, these HVAC units have to be replaced. So you just want to know what you're walking into so that you have the right budget to be able to take care of that. Foundation is a big one, right? Major foundation issues can be very costly. So you want to make sure that you don't have major foundation issues, or even if you do, you have a contractor come in there and take a look at it and make sure that it's something that is repairable within a reasonable cost. Or if not, and if you find out anything in this due diligence that does not make sense, it's time to walk away from the property, right? One of the most important thing you have to learn as an investor is you cannot fall in love with the asset, right? You got to fall in love with the value that you're able to create for your investors, not a particular asset. So if during your due diligence you find anything that doesn't make any sense, you have to walk away from the property. Then you look at the amenities. This is one that we really like looking at, because one of the very first things we do at every property that we acquire is we go in there and we upgrade the amenities so that the new tenants might be able to enjoy this new amenities, before we even start doing like our interior value add. Our parking lot, fences, cameras. Cameras are a big one now, depending, especially if you're buying these Class C properties in transitioning areas, you want to have cameras so that, because it's another sense of security to your tenants, right? So during our early access, we perform this physical due diligence, have a report for everything, about 3 days after the physical due diligence, we have an estimate for all the repairs that need to be done. Now you go back and look at the estimate and compare that to your underwriting, and you make adjustments as needed. Now, when the due diligence is done properly, right, you know what you're walking into when you take over an asset. You know exactly what you're buying because you have identified any issues that this property might have. You have identified any opportunities that you probably did not see in just the financials, and you are able to concretize what your business plan will be when you take over the asset. So your due diligence is very, very, very important because that's how you're able to escape any kind of surprises. And one other very important piece of the due diligence that I'm going to mention that is not necessarily listed on here is taxes. Taxes, taxes, taxes. Now, when you're taking over a property, uh, most operators will get a tax consultant to get like a tax quote of what the new taxes will be when they take over the property next 2 years. But one thing that you want to make sure that you ask the seller if any of the taxes are under appeal by not just you, or maybe not just the seller appealing the taxes, but also the county. You want to ask the seller to put something in writing that says these taxes are not under appeal by the county to the best of their knowledge. Because when taxes are under appeal, you really cannot see it in any records. All the tax consultants will not be able to see it. So there's a window there where taxes can be under appeal for like 6 months to a year by the county before the case is heard. And you take over a property with taxes that are under appeal and you don't know, right? And then you end up inheriting like a higher tax than what you initially thought. And you could tell I'm talking about this is from experience, from our own personal experience of learning about this. So this is one important key fact that you want to take from that. Make sure that the taxes are not under appeal by the county, right? So again, your whole due diligence constitutes of the physical due diligence, where you go and inspect the building, you look at everything, make sure everything is good. You look at every physical aspect from plumbing, electrical, roofs, walls, windows, everything. Then you look at the lease audits. Make sure that the rents that are represented by the seller is actually what is on the lease agreements. You want to review all the seller's books. Make sure that the records match what is being represented. Because remember, when you're buying a multifamily property, you're actually buying a business. So you want to make sure that the numbers represented by this business are accurate. And important, and most important, you want to do your underwriting, update your underwriting based on all the information that you provided, right? So the process I just walked through with you is the same process that we walked through with acquiring our latest asset, which is under the acquisition phase right now. It's a 268 unit in Atlanta, Georgia, in Gwinnett County, which we're acquiring. Is open for investment. And if there's anybody that might be looking to learn more, you can scan the QR code, and a member of our team will reach out to you and tell you more about this asset. Yeah, but this is the same process that we use for every single asset that we acquire. Going through that due diligence phase, making sure that everything that is represented by the seller is accurate. The property is still a solid investment so that you avoid any huge surprises when you take over the property. So on that note, I'm going to open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions, then we could dig into it.
Thanks, Leslie. That was a great presentation. What questions do we have? And if we don't have any questions from the audience, I have a few that I can ask for you.
Go for it.
All right. So what's one thing that you do during due diligence that sets you apart from other companies who are buying apartment homes?
So one of the great things that we do is like we spend a lot of time with the tenants. Like we spend a lot of time with the tenants, getting to understand why they live in their property, what is important to them, some of the issues that they have. Because at the end of the day, our philosophy is like we're actually buying a community. And we are very successful when we make that community a very, very nice, livable environment for the members that live in there. So we spend a lot of time with the tenants while we have teams going and inspecting the units, and we work with those teams as well. But we actually have like team members that go in and we talk to a lot of the tenants to get an understanding. And from the tenants, we're able to get like a lot of good insights. Like I'll give you an example. One of the properties that we acquired in Columbia, South Carolina, from talking to a bunch of the tenants, one of the things that kept coming up is like the kids don't have a place to sit and wait for the bus in the morning. Like it's really dark out there. They feel unsafe. That's not anything that the property manager told us or like the previous owner. It's not anything that was on the business plan. But that was one of the first things that we did. Like build a small bench with more lighting over there. And the tenants really appreciated it, you know. So those are some of the things that we do. Maybe some other operators do that as well, but that's one of the key facets of our due diligence that we spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never heard it specifically that where people are listening to the residents during the due diligence phase. So that's really cool.
Hey, Matt, I have just a couple comments. I found my unmute button. Sorry.
Sure.
But he's asking questions. This isn't really about the due diligence yet here, but have you noticed that like the high interest rates are slowing you down as far as trying to purchase properties? You know, I mean, it used to be pretty low, and now it's up there a little bit. Are you having problems purchasing properties right now?
Yeah, for a while it was a problem because the interest rates went up so fast that the prices did not adjust, right? So there's a lag. There was a lag between how fast the interest rate went versus the prices adjusting to the interest rates because these properties we're buying are highly leveraged, so interest rates they're sensitive to interest rate changes. You know, so for a while it was very tough. We went through about 18 months of underwriting over 2,000 properties before we're able to find this deal that we have on the contract and which we assuming an existing loan on it. So it's been tough, but prices have finally adjusted to the increased interest rate. So we're starting to see more transactions now. Again, it's just about because you're buying these deals, the numbers have to work. So it's just about buying deals where the numbers work. And because it took so long for the prices to adjust to the interest rates, it was really tough finding deals. Yeah, but the market is opening up right now, Chuck.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, I did like that, like on your due diligence that you just don't check like, 50% of the units or 70%, you actually check every unit. I was really impressed with that. Because I mean, you don't know what is hiding behind all, they could be hiding something
Exactly.
on some of them doors.
Exactly.
So
Every single unit. The story I told you about, it was actually on the second day. It was the second to the last unit that we were checking, right? And I was like, that's exactly why you want to look at every unit because the one you don't check, that's the one where you get a surprise so that's crazy.
okay, exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's all I had. That was a great presentation, by the way. I had other questions like ahead of time, but your presentation answered them all. So I didn't really have anything to ask. So perfect presentation.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you.
All right, I got a couple more. So let's see. Do you always replace the existing property management when you take over a property, or do you like keeping the existing manager on board if possible?
So the actual manager on-site person, we typically like to inherit the person. We might not use the same company, but we usually take over the staff. If the person is good, we try to keep them, right? Like the property we're acquiring, the property manager has been there for 20 years. She's amazing. I cannot wait to work with her. So we're keeping her for sure. When we identify good property, good people want to work with good people. So I'll say 90% of the time we keep the property managers, yeah.
Yeah, with how things are these days, I mean, getting a good manager in there is tough.
It's
So if you
hard.
got one,
It's
keep
hard.
it.
Absolutely, it's hard, yeah.
All right. Most of these you've already answered, which is awesome. That'll be great for our audience. How do you fund your due diligence expenses since they do come before closing and all that?
So we the great thing about our property management company is we don't pay upfront for the due diligence. It gets paid at closing. So we factor that in as part of the closing expense. But if we do the due diligence and we end up not acquiring the property, we pay for it as a company, right? So that's one important thing for investors to understand. Like the whole acquisition process is expensive, right? The process of going in and finding an actual deal before you bring that deal to present it to investors, it's an expensive process. It's a grueling process that requires not you paying for travel, you're paying for all these expenses, all these professionals, you're paying for all of that before you actually get the asset on the contract. So yeah, and if you do the due diligence, you end up finding something that doesn't make any sense, you got to back out of it, we pay out of pocket. We've actually had one of those where we actually paid the property manager for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something investors don't always know, is that GP team and the partners are always putting up their capital to get the deal done, and
Yeah,
before you even look at it.
it's a cost intensive business. Like especially it depends on the kind of property you're buying and the kind of market you're buying in. It's tough. You spend we spend a lot. Like for example, for the last 18 months we've not closed the deal, but for those 18 months we've have a full staff, you know. We've been underwriting deals, reviewing thousands upon thousands of deals, and but our team, you know, making sure that our team is well taken care of, you know, traveling to different markets to find that one gem that makes sense just to underwrite, you know. So it takes a lot of work, especially if you're working with an operator that wants the best for the investors. It takes a lot of work to find that deal that actually makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. For your lease audits, do you do those internally, or do you have an outside party perform those?
Internal, our third party property management company, we do everything internal.
All right. That's pretty much it for my questions. Are there any other questions?
No, I don't have any more questions.
All right.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you for being present and for giving us your attention and your time. Really appreciate you.
Oh, it was a great presentation, Leslie. I really appreciate all the information you just gave out. Excellent
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you, sir.
All right. If no other questions, we'll wrap this thing up. That's it for us at the Elash Apartment Connection. Thank you for being here, especially Leslie, our guest. The rest of the time is for networking. So we're going to stop the recording and we'll see you all again later.
All right. Thanks, Matt.